Zhuangzi tells a story about a man named Hundun. Hundun had no face, no eyes, no ears, no mouth, no nose, no openings at all. And he was apparently doing fine. His friends, though, wanting to help, decided to give him what everyone else had. One opening per day. On the seventh day, Hundun died. This episode is about what was alive before the drilling started. It's called Duh. This podcast works through 81 chapters of the Daodejing, all 81, one at a time, not as history, not as philosophy to understand and set aside, but as a practice manual for living. No belief required, no doctrine, just what can be noticed, sat with, and verified in your own experience. You don't need to have heard earlier episodes. Start here. Tao will meet you where you are. I was driving recently, and something came up, the kind of thing that used to land hard. I'm not going to name the specific trigger because it doesn't matter. What does matter is what I noticed happening, or almost happening, in my body. There was the beginning of a reaction. I could feel it starting, the familiar shape of it. The way it used to gather momentum, and then something shifted. Not because I stopped it, not because I talked myself out of it. I just saw it. From a little distance, I didn't manufacture. And what I saw was how much emptiness was already there. More emptiness than reaction. The reaction was present, but it was thin, like a ghost, like the memory of something that had already passed, still moving through the room out of habit. I've had glimpses of this before, but this time I could see clearly which was which. There was the interior, the whole accumulated landscape of preferences and reactions, old protections. And there was the one watching it, not managing it, not gardening it into a better shape, just seeing it for what it is, a conglomerate. Experiences laid down over time. Patterns that fire because they learn to fire, not because they're me. The gardener doesn't become the garden. The mirror isn't the thing it reflects. That moment in the car, that clarity about which was which. That's what this chapter is pointing at. That's Duh. Chapter 10 is where we're at this week, and the title that I gave to this chapter is Duh, like the Duh and Daodejing. And we'll get into that, but first, I'm going to read my translation. Can you carry the earthly soul and hold the undivided so that it never leaves? Can you gather your breath and become supple like a newborn? Can you wash the deeply dark mirror free of blemish? Can you govern the people and love them without knowing? Can the gate of heaven open and close while you remain the receptive? Can you be clear in all four directions without knowing? Give birth to them, raise them, but don't possess them. Act without relying on outcomes. Lead without ruling. This is called deeply dark Duh. So for the analysis, let's start at the end, this word Duh. And the phrase in this chapter, this is called deeply dark Duh. That's where the chapter lands after the 7 questions, 4 negations, After everything it asks you to carry and release and remain, duh. I'm not using the word virtue or power or integrity. I'm not translating it the same way I don't translate Dao. So Daodejing, duh is the duh in the title of this classic book. Any English word puts a frame around something that resists framing. Duh is the way Tao moves through a specific thing, including ourselves. The duh of water is how water moves downward without contention, benefiting everyone around, filling what's available. Your duh is how Tao moves through you. It's not an achievement. It's not a moral quality you cultivate like virtue. What you are when nothing is interfering. The ghost in the car, the accumulated reaction, the old pattern, that's all interference. What was watching it, clearly, without being caught in it, that's closer to duh. The whole chapter is asking, what conditions allow that? There's 7 questions, each one a different angle on the same clearing. The first question reaches for po. Most translations say soul and leave it there, but po is specifically the earthly soul, the yin soul, the one that stays with the body. Classical Chinese held that the human being carries 2 souls in tension. One, the yang soul that rises, and po, the yin soul that stays down, stays bodily, stays here. The chapter opens by asking whether you can hold the earthly dimension together with the undivided, without the split that habitual self-division creates. It's not a metaphysical question. It's a somatic one. Can the body and its animating principle remain whole? Leads us to the infant. Can you gather your breath and become supple like a newborn? The infant here isn't a symbol of innocence. The infant is a body that hasn't yet learned to brace. The chi hasn't yet been divided by years of effort and reactivity and holding tension against the world. The question is whether you can return to that condition, not innocence, suppleness, the body before it decided it needed defending. Next, the deeply dark mirror. Other translations reach for inner vision, mysterious insight, but the image is a mirror, a reflective surface that shows things as they are when it's clean. Ci is a blemish, a small defect. The question is whether you can keep the surface clear. That's a maintenance question. Every sitting practice is an answer to it. And then, 天门开合，能悟此乎? This is the line that most translations flatten. In Taoist somatic tradition, Tianmen, the gate of heaven, refers to sensory apertures, the place where inside meets outside, the eyes especially. What opens and closes is perception itself, and Ci, the receptive principle. It's what you're asked to remain while that happens. It's not controlling what comes in. It's not bracing. It's not reaching. Remaining the receptive pole while the gates do what gates do. The mirror doesn't chase what it reflects. The closing lines are a direct echo of chapter 2. 为而不是. act without relying on outcomes. It appears there too, in the same 4-beat structure. Lao Tzu is returning to the same ground. When you hear the echo, you're meant to hear it. I kept the translation identical, so it lands. De is what's named when all of that is operating. Not the result of effort, the condition that remains when the interference clears. So what is this chapter actually asking? Zhuangzi has a story about a man named Hundun. Hundun means chaos, undifferentiated wholeness, the condition before things get sorted into categories. Hundun had no face, no openings, no gates of heaven, no sensory apertures, nothing through which the outside world could enter or exit. And he was apparently fine. His 2 friends, the emperors of the southern and northern seas, visited him often. Hundun treated them well, so they wanted to repay him. They noticed that everyone else had 7 openings: eyes, ears, nostrils, mouth, for seeing and hearing, breathing and eating. Hundun had none, so they decided to give him some. 1 opening per day, 7 days, and on the 7th day, Hundun died. Chapter asks 7 questions. Each one is an opening being drilled. Can you carry the earthly soul and hold the undivided? Can you gather your breath like a newborn? Can you wash the mirror clean? Can you love without knowing? Can you remain the receptive while the gate opens and closes? Can you be clear in all 4 directions without knowing? 7 questions, 7 openings. The chapter isn't asking you to acquire capabilities or capacities. It's asking whether the drilling has already cost something, and whether what it cost can be found again underneath. Hundun was whole before his friends helped him. The infant is whole before the world teaches it to brace. The mirror is clean before the blemishes accumulate. This isn't nostalgia for a lost state. It's a diagnostic question about what's still here. In Hakomi, we work with character. Not character as personality, not character as something to be proud of or ashamed of. Character as the adaptive strategy the organism developed to get its needs met. The child who learned that staying small kept things safe. The one who learned that performing kept love available. The one who learned that needing nothing was the only way to stay intact. These strategies are intelligent. They worked, and they calcified. And now they run, not because the threat is still present, but because the pattern learned to run. That's the blemish on the mirror, not the content of the reaction, the distortion, the system responding to a present moment through the lens of a much older one. Hundun's friends didn't mean harm. Character doesn't mean harm. Both are forms of well-intentioned drilling that cost something whole. The infant in this line is the being before the strategy formed. Not innocent, undefended. The chi hasn't yet organized itself around a wound. The breath hasn't yet learned to hold. The condition isn't gone. It's underneath the character, underneath the accumulated strategy, available the moment the strategy isn't running the show. The Neye calls it the condition before Jing, refined vital essence, gets scattered. Before the reactivity takes it. Hakomi calls it essence. The tradition calls it Da. Different maps, same territory. What's there when the drilling stops and Hundun is left alone? Leave Hundun alone. Weightless action, Wu Wei, isn't passive. It's action that comes from that layer rather than from the character strategy. Not the performance of love, love. Not the performance of care, care. The infant doesn't strategize its breathing, it breathes. That's the direction. And the gate of heaven, opening and closing while you remain the receptive. I want to be direct about what this points at, somatically. It's the moment when something comes in through perception, a sound, a sight, a sensation, another driver doing something, and instead of the system grabbing it and running, there's a pause. Not a manufactured pause. The natural gap between stimulus and reaction that opens when the mirror is clean. The gate opens. The thing comes through. You remain the receptive. That's not passivity. That's the most precise form of presence the tradition knows. Which brings us to what Da actually feels like when it's moving. Let me ask you to do something right now. If you're somewhere, you can close your eyes for a moment, do that. If you're driving, don't do that. Notice the breath, not controlling it, just noticing that it's already happening. It was happening before you noticed it. It will keep happening after your attention moves on. That's Hundun before the first opening was drilled. The system whole, doing what it does, not yet organized around a wound. You can try to notice the interior, whatever's there, thoughts, tension, the residue of the day. Don't try to clear it. Just notice that you are the one noticing it. That's the landscape, all of it, everything accumulated, and then there's the one watching. They're not the same thing. The mirror is not the things it reflects. That noticing, that clear, simple distinction between the landscape and the one watching, that's the direction of Da. Not an achievement, a recognition. And it's available right now in whatever condition you're in whatever level of turbulence or clarity the day has produced. Da isn't something you earn. It's what's already here when the drilling stops. The closing 4 lines are where the chapter turns outward. Give birth to them, raise them, but don't possess them. Act without relying on outcomes. Lead without ruling. This is what Da looks like in relationship. And the first thing to notice is what it frees you from. You no longer have to drill openings into the people you love. You no longer have to struggle with perfecting yourself or correcting others. Both of those projects, exhausting, endless, well-intentioned, cost something whole. Think about what it means to stop relating to your partner through a role. Husband, wife. The role is a set of openings you've decided they should have. This is how a partner sees. This is how a partner hears. This is how a partner responds. When the role runs the relationship, you're not with the person. You're with your improvement project. Duh in relationship means putting the drill down. Not because roles are bad, because the person underneath the role is more whole than the role and more real. You're trying to help someone find their unconditioned essence, the duh that's already there underneath all the accumulated layers. You can't do that while you're drilling. Same with a pet. You don't own them. You foster an environment where they can live as naturally as possible under your care. That's 长而不宰. Lead without ruling, in its most literal form. The animal has its own nature. Your job isn't to give it a face. And in the therapy room, this one I know directly, the moment you need a particular outcome for a client, you've picked up the drill. The caring is still there. The skill is still there. But something has gotten attached to a result, and that attachment, however well-intentioned, is a form of possession. You can help someone find duh in themselves. You cannot install it. The moment you try, you're no longer leading, you're ruling. Duh as freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom from the exhausting project of giving Hundun a face. Seven questions, 7 openings, and underneath all of them, before the first one was drilled, something whole. Duh. You can put the drill down. It was all already here. 再引破报衣，能无离乎？壮气至柔，能因而乎？涤除渲染，能无测乎？爱民治国，能无治乎？天门开合，能无测乎？明白测达，能无为乎？上至续之，胜而不有，为而不恃，长而不宰，是谓玄德。